Ain't it a great day? Ain't it a great day? Ain't it a great day? Ain't it a great day?
Hello everyone, my name's Dean, let's talk crypto. This is where you subscribe for daily Bitcoin updates and technical analysis. We track the price of Bitcoin as a proxy for the cryptocurrency markets at large. Today is August 11th, 2025. And I'm going to title this episode, The Surprise Move That's Been 300 Days in the Making. Alright, there's going to be very likely, again, this is technical analysis, it's all probabilistic, there are no 100% anythings, but with a high degree of probability, Bitcoin and the rest of the cryptocurrency market is going to trend down for a bit. Bitcoin and some other assets, some other altcoins that I'm not going to talk about necessarily right now, are going to stay in the trend much longer than people anticipate. The result of this, if I'm correct, will be a cascade of liquidations, the likes of which we've never seen before in this space. I said this over a year ago. And it's because this move has been almost a year in the making. And before we started the distribution, before we started the process of gathering orders and selling them off slowly for the big move down, I said, oh, if this happens, it's going to be big because people don't seem to respect support and resistance in this market. Here's something I noticed, and this is a small, short, but I think important digression. And then we'll get into the analysis. By the way, we're going to not only get into the high time frame analysis of what I claim to be a 300-day move in that's being expressed now with this downtrend that we've just started, but I'm going to talk about specifically the small time frame price action that I overlooked and the mistake that I made. I always like to do a postmortem or an autopsy on whatever read I made and where I made a mistake, and I file it in the recesses of my mind so I don't repeat the same mistake. And if you're watching this channel at this point in time, you're probably into learning as well, so I'm going to share that with you. So I'm going to talk about that. All right, now the digression. A lot of people watch this channel for some reason because it's served to them by the YouTube algorithm, or because they're looking for a counter thesis to the popular, like, everything's going to pump and we're going to be so rich right now. And most people seem to not appreciate how price moves. Most people seem really like, if it's a green candle, it's a trend. They conflate the idea of a green candle and a trend, and a red candle and you're trending down. People don't appreciate consolidation. I've said this before. One of the most useful things that I believe, in my sense, in my mind, from that I've gotten from Elliott wave analysis isn't what everybody discusses about Elliott wave analysis, which is the 5 waves up and 5 waves down. No, it's the way in which Elliott wave analysis parses consolidation, consolidative price action. If you study any market, you'll see that most of the time is spent in consolidation. Most of the time is spent sideways. The moves up and down that are motive moves, as Ralph Nelson Elliott called them, the impulsive moves, they're rare. That's where the money's made. A lot of money is lost and a lot of money is made up or down. That's when the market moves up or down. Obviously, you can say a lot of money is made sideways because people get chopped out, but people are always looking for up or down. But to be honest, most of the time the market's going sideways. Very few people appreciate this. This is what I find in my experience, responding to comments, reading all the comments, seeing the comments that don't even go through because they're so nasty, and YouTube automatically flags them and as spam or abusive hate speech or whatever. People don't understand this, and they're stuck on way too small time frames. For them, they've been watching my show for a week and they're like, oh man, you have no idea what you're talking about. For a week you've been saying this, and for a week nothing happened. Where I'm here telling you, this literally took 300 days to come to fruition. 300 days. Where are the most so let me say, most market participants, most people involved in crypto will fail because it's not that they lack patience, it's that they lack perspective. They just don't they don't appreciate something that takes that long. And I promise I'll stop and I'll say this last thing to round it out. Crypto only, or Bitcoin has only charted for like 15, 16 years max. I think the index chart is like 15, 16 years. You can check that. I think something like that. That's nothing. That's nothing. Yet and still, people claim to be technical analysts who don't look at any charts outside of crypto for studying. They don't look at anything outside of crypto. All their theses are based off of what crypto's done, what Bitcoin's done, cycles that have taken place within 15 years. It's like saying, I know I've mastered climatology. I've mastered the science of, weather patterns, and you've only ever lived in Northern or Southern California, say Southern California, and you're only 5 years old or something. You've only been through a very small part. You've only been in a certain kind of climate, and you haven't really even seen much of a climate cycle. You've seen microclimates, you've seen, changes here and there, but you don't know what you don't know. And you don't have to live hundreds of years, but you haven't even bothered to see what anybody said about, temperate climates or tropical climates, equatorial climates, anything. This is what I see every day. So for those of you who have a little bit of perspective, you're going to absolutely crush this market, because the people you're trading against are so misinformed, it's not even funny. And they're not only misinformed, but they're dogmatic about being misinformed. They are attached to their ignorance. They believe crypto is the only asset that's ever, Bitcoin's the only asset that's ever been invented, and it's different. So there's no use in studying anything else, because Bitcoin's completely different and it moves singularly just by itself. And so why would I look at, gold or silver for the past 100 years? I don't need to know what a cycle is. I know what a cycle is. It's the halving cycle. Every 4 years in August, this happens. Imagine thinking that any market behaves based off the Gregorian calendar. Imagine thinking that and being shocked and surprised that in every August something doesn't happen. For 15 years, you don't even do a 15-year study, because most of them crack out 4 or 5 year charts. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm getting into this too much. You guys are here for the analysis. But do you see, this is what I have to deal with on a day in and day out basis. There's so much ignorance in this space, and I'm not saying that I know it all, but people, do your own research. Please do your own research. Use what I'm presenting here as a source to do more research in whatever way you think is appropriate. Look up the stuff I say, fact check it, just do your own fucking research. There's way too much ignorance. I mean, it's so thick, it's wow. All right, let's get on with it. So I claim that this move is 300 days in the making. I've shown this before on the channel, and I've talked about it, but it's a daily show, so a lot of times I'm zoomed in and to the 4 hourly time frame. I'll zoom out to the daily. I might speak on the weekly briefly, but let me take the time to just say This right here is why this happens. Okay? That you can look at it multiple ways, but the ways in which I've been looking at it are according to Wyckoff analysis, which is a Wyckoff distribution. Go pull up, I'm not going to waste any time because I've done it before, but here's how you can do your own research. Go pull up Wyckoff distribution on Google, and you'll see two general schematics. And I think this one looks more like the UTAD schematic. I think it's the number 2. This is a upthrust after distribution, it seems. Okay, and so you can see evidence that this may very well be a Wyckoff distribution in effect, where this right here, that everybody, not everybody, but most people, most market participants are so euphoric about. People don't even know what euphoria means. What really breaks my heart, I'm sorry, but I have to say this. What really breaks my heart is when people see Bitcoin up 3% and they pull out the tear emoji, like tears of joy emoji. Like, bro, you're not going to get rich off a 2%, 3% pump. Most of you aren't. I mean, some of you may, but most of you aren't. That's not how we get rich in crypto. You haven't seen anything yet. You don't know what a trend is. You don't know what a trend is. A small move up for 2 to 3%, Ethereum moving 27% in a few days, that's not it. That's not Lambo money. You don't know what a pump is. Do your own research. Back test the bull market of 2015. Back test the bullish impulse of 2020. Back test stuff. Figure out like what people are in this space for, because they're in it for big gains, not these 2 to 3% little things. Don't tell me that's a trend. That's not a trend. Look up the definition of trend. That's not a trend. All right. This is most likely a UTAD, upthrust after distribution. This is not where you want to get excited, because as I said before, it's more likely than not the case that all of this is one contiguous channel, and this is just the top of the channel, and then you look for the distribution that looks something like this. Okay, so that is looking at it in terms of Wyckoff. Again, I say 300 days, but if you measure it specifically, I think, you know, you could say it's 250, 270 days, something like that, but it's been a while. It's been a while. So from a trader's perspective, I mean a serious swing or position trader's perspective, you selling anywhere in this channel is a good sell. Anywhere from 80K to 120K is a great sell. I know there's a 40K delta in what I just quoted, but you have to understand the perspective. You are treating this as a danger zone because at any point in time, you can break down from it, okay? And you're not necessarily here to make money. You're here to protect your funds. This is I have to speak on this because it's so difficult communicating with people. It seems as if nobody understands. This is not a money-making thing. This is just positioning. You're positioning. The money-making comes in the actual trend, in the actual impulse. You're not concerned selling either 80 or 120K. You're just protecting your position. You're protecting you're keeping from losing it all and making sure that you're alive when things are actually trending. That's how a trader thinks. That's how a disciplined trader thinks. You're not going to make any kind of money that you can do anything with in these paltry corrective moves, generally speaking. Okay, I'm speaking generally. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. The other way I've been looking at it is using Elliott wave analysis, and like I said, that's kind of my expertise. That's where I'm really drawn to, and I've developed A/B basing beyond what was presented in Ralph Nelson Elliott's treatise, I think I forget what it's called, but it's his personal treatise where he describes something called A/B basing, where when he looks at consolidations, they typically take the form of break, counter, and he calls the break A and the counter B. And I've seen in my own research that you need at least 3 of those to complete a consolidation. So in terms of A/B basing, you have 1, 2, 3. I have my 3 right there. Again, 300 days worth of tracking. It's the equivalent of we're going hunting and I'm hunting moose or meese. I don't know what the plural is. And I'm up in a tree. I don't know anything about hunting. I've never hunted before. But I'm just saying this. This is an example. I'm in a tree with all the camo and stuff like that, and I smell because I don't want to attract any unwanted attention. So I smell like the forest, like the animals, and I'm just very quiet. I've been, in the tree for weeks, waiting for the moose. I have no idea how you hunt moose if this is the way, but please follow me. So I'm doing that, right? And I want to hunt that moose, and with that one hunt, then I eat. Then I change my life. That can last me all season. That can last me and a few families in our village. Meanwhile, most market participants are out there with their bright orange camo in the forest hunting rabbit and squirrels. And they're killing some, maybe some pigeons, but that lasts maybe a couple days, a night. That's just dinner, and they're celebrating, and they think that this is the life. Squirrels. Ooh man, did you see that one squirrel? Oh my god, that squirrel was delicious. Hunting squirrels. They're just so long you can hunt squirrels for. Eventually it's no longer hunting season or something like that, and we don't have permits. And so what do? I take my moose because I sniped it. I took my time. I really bid my time. I kind of deprived myself of the smaller hunts for the bigger hunt. So I was very careful not to go out on the forest floor and hunt the squirrels and hunt the rabbits. And I didn't want to cause a commotion to make sure that the moose came when they were supposed to come so I could hunt them. And ultimately, when it was hunting season was over, I left with my moose. I was able to feed my family and many other families for a whole season plus. And some of my other colleagues in the woods went hungry because it was no longer hunting season. You can no longer hunt, and they've exhausted all of their ammo and all of their time hunting small game. This is what I'm trying to say. This ain't it. You can get lucky and catch some of these moves, but you're in a place that isn't really generating. 2, it's massively dangerous. And you're going to see that here, because I think, if I'm correct, you're going to see the biggest mass liquidation event you've ever seen in crypto. Because people are going to be so offsides on this trade. Not just market participants, governments, hedge funds, all kinds of people, because they have no respect for resistance. They have no respect for high time frame price action, high time frame moves, and careful calculated market dynamics. This is what I'm saying. Most people are into buy now, and what happened today, what happened yesterday. This can be a daily show, and we can still respect the high time frame dynamics, the big moves. All right. So, like I said, I'm seeing 3 pivots, or 3 pairs of A/B basing, and this is the last pair, which I call personally a pivot. You're not going to see this in any literature. I have not written about this, but I call it a pivot. I say 2 degrees of A/B basing and a pivot. Last night, when I gave my update, I said this B wave, let's now zoom in on the 4-hourly time frame, and let's pay close attention to that. And this is pretty much what I've done in my own spare time. And so I'm just going to share it with you. I do a postmortem, like I said, an autopsy, and what I got right, what I got wrong, why, and I file it away. I no longer use a trading journal. I just make mental notes. And I read this as, okay, this is my final break of structure. This is my A wave, the final A wave before the B wave. And I thought, when I saw this, my immediate thought was, okay, this is gonna end, and actually I'm expecting a higher high than this. I'm expecting a capitulative pump going into all-time high, grabbing liquidity, and then flushing down, because that's a max pain scenario. That's where all the ill set, or would you call them, all the shorts that weren't well positioned, they get caught, that liquidity gets grabbed, and then we pivot and then grab the downside liquidity. That's max pain. That's max pain. And it's not about some market maker, some fat white dude in a ill-fitting suit behind a mahogany desk, ha 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 ha. How am I going to get them? People think market maker like there's somebody controlling. No, it's liquidity. Markets like liquidity, like electricity, like water. They go to where they are. Pools. So it's going to go where all of the money is. And that's where it went, to around 120, right over 120, effectuating that short squeeze. I didn't see that because I didn't understand this. I was thinking that this was an A wave. This was an A wave, and this was a B wave. And then I was like, what the hell is this? I didn't know what that was. I thought it was a post pivot or something like that. I didn't know what it was. But in retrospect, looking at everything, if this is your final A wave, your final A wave pivot, this is your final B wave, the minimum retracement of this, if this is a flat correction, that this is a hard read. Let me say this. Hard read. I didn't even beat myself up for this because I'm like, dude, is this a pivot or a flat correction? I have no idea. Given the chance to, all right, redo it, I'd probably say, oh, this is a zigzag. Did I say pivot? I meant zigzag. This is a zigzag. And so I'm expecting the retracement to come to the 0.5618, but not any higher. But so being able to read this as a flat correction and 19 days of A wave, that's tough. So I'm not even mad at myself for that. Again, smaller time frame reads don't have to be perfect. On a higher time frame, my perspective is that 300-day channel. Very difficult to get wrong. If I'm reading that 300-day channel and I continue to read it as a distribution, I'm eventually going to get it right. And I'm going to be extremely right. Not the right that the trolls talk about. Oh, you're eventually going to get it right if you keep calling for down. No, idiots. I'm eventually going to get it right in such a way that I'm still going to be here and you may not have any capital left. Because I'll say what's going to happen, what's likely going to happen, what you're going to see a lot of people do. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much it. So all this, before we go into that discussion that I'm going to talk about, this is a flat correction, more likely than not. Hit the you can measure it, but remember, flat corrections come to a minimum of the 786 Fibonacci retracement, maximum of the 1618. Somebody asked me in the comments, what's your invalidation for where Bitcoin turns around, if it ever does? I said 130, and that's a hard invalidation because that is the 1618 of this A wave. So it seems like we hit the 786, went a little bit above, and then started moving down. So that's what I'm seeing. You would have to have, if you were shorting this really responsibly, your stops would be at 130 or above. And again, that takes your being able to read this or the previous A wave, which is tough. I don't know how many people are making that read. All I'm saying is that's pretty much it for my postmortem. Like I said, I misread this. I saw this as one A wave and this is B wave. I thought that was it. Tough. tough. I mean, I've done 300 days, almost 300 days of work. You know, I'm getting mentally fatigued. I'm like wanting this to be over. So I'm like, okay, that's an A wave, that's a B wave. I'm not envisioning this to be a whole A wave in and of itself. But, you know, we move. So that's what I see on the small time frames. Okay, what are people going to do? Why is this going to be a mass liquidation event? It's not just because a lot of people aren't seeing this at all. And it's a complete surprise for them. And they don't know anything about distribution channels. They don't know anything about resistance. They don't respect resistance. They think it just should go up because it should go up. They don't know anything about trending markets or how when your base is flat, it's indicative of a non-trend, a corrective move that's going to retrace upon itself. They don't know anything of that. So they're just buying because for them, price is everything. Not price action, price. If it's at 120, that's a high price. So it has to go higher. That's literally the mentality. That's who you're trading against. This is why even a bit of discipline, even a bit of good technical analysis, and you wipe the floor with most market participants, because most market participants don't look at price action. They just look at price. Dean, you're so wrong. The price is at 120, and for 300 days you've been calling it to go down. That's the mentality. That's a mentality. They have no appreciation for, all right, before you make an impulsive move, you have to make a consolidative one. And a consolidative one pretty much keeps the same range for an extended period of time. There's no appreciation for the time the market takes. Their cycles happen in, 100 days or a few months, right? Or maybe at best 4 years. That's it. That's a cycle for them. That's it. So what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of people with their stops, with their liquidations from here on down, okay? And maybe some of them are thinking, okay, well, I can see a little bit of retracement because that's normal. Like the market doesn't go up in a straight line. So I'm just going to put my stops above 100 because there's no way on God's green earth we go under 100. You're going to see a bunch of stops and liquidations get hit under 100, and then it's going to go further, faster. What happens when people's stops get hit, when people's liquidations get hit? That's what you call a long squeeze, where buyers are forced sellers. Buyers become forced sellers. The market forces them to change their buys into sells. That's going to plummet the price down. In addition to that, what you're going to see is people are going to keep trying to buy, thinking every point, they're going to start right here, I tell you. And I can already see it because I've done the same thing. When I criticize, it's because I was that guy. I've made all these mistakes and more. So what they're going to see is they're going to see, okay, that's a trend, counter trend. This is probably a support. They probably got their EMAs out and it's hugging the EMAs. So they're going to be like, okay, we're buying back here or buying more here, or this is where we buy. And then it's going to fall. Okay. And then they're going to be, okay, next time. All right, this is where we buy. And then it's going to fall. Every time, people are going to keep doing that, all the way down to the actual levels of support. That is also going to add to the long squeeze, the liquidation, cascading liquidation event. So keep that in mind. You might see price just plummet violently. And you might ask yourself, well, why is this happening? It's not manipulation. It's just natural market dynamics. Market's never wrong. Yes, you can see manipulation in some of these meme coins, some of these low market cap assets where, clearly an influencer is manipulating the supply and all that stuff. But, a lot of times when people scream manipulation, it's just an excuse, right? For not being able to read the market or not liking what the market's doing. In high market cap assets like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, it's not manipulation. It's just, this is what the market's doing. It'll do it in a number of ways, but it's up to you to figure out how, right? We don't know exactly how it's going to manifest, but generally there are certain principles that the market follows. It doesn't break. Okay, so this is what's going on. Now, I'll say this to end my Bitcoin analysis, my very long Bitcoin analysis today. I believe that the first place we see a significant move up is probably going to be at 107. How do I get that? All right, and it goes back to first my high time frame read, because my high time frame read has 55 to 60k as support. So if I'm correct, the trend starts at the top here at 122, and I project the move all the way down to around 55, 53, whatever. Okay, my first move I talked about, my first big move is around 89, 88. I talked about that yesterday. In that, you can even dissect it even more. I wouldn't necessarily, but you could, because the time frame that this show happens, and people's attention spans, and they see a green candle, I already know I'm gonna get a million comments. Dean, it's reversing. It went up 2%. It's reversing. All right, so I think the first time I'm gonna get those comments is when we hit around 108, because that's an intermediate level of support right here. So you might get a wave 2 bounce at 108, and then it continues. So this is what I'm seeing for Bitcoin. If I'm correct, I don't wish ill on anyone. This is a tough market. It's a tough game. It's a tough business. A lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. Lots of people are going to lose a lot of money. You're going to see exchanges go down. You're going to see hedge funds go down. You may see governments get out of crypto altogether. Okay, so that's Bitcoin. All right, let's quickly just go over what we see in the total 3 and Bitcoin dominance, and then call it. So total 3, what are we looking at? Just like we said yesterday, we weren't spot on as to how it broke down on the really small time frames, but again, the high time frame analysis by and large plays out. I will repeat this. It's not hard. The hard thing about trading is the 300 days spent in the canopy, the tree canopy, smelling like a beaver or whatever is in the woods. I don't even know. And waiting with pain on your face, and while all these other people are throwing parties and having powwows with their grilled rabbit and squirrel, and your stomach's grumbling, but you're waiting for that moose. That's what's tough. Not necessarily the read. The read is simple. It's basically basic support and resistance. You're at resistance right here. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit. You're at resistance. This is what we said yesterday. You're at resistance. It's not a massive resistance, but it's like a 20-day resistance. You hit resistance, and we said, okay, you're probably putting in a head and shoulders bearish reversal pattern, but it ended up being an M top. Boo-hoo. It's a bearish reversal pattern all the same. You're bearish. You stopped momentum, upwards momentum here. Now you're turning around. That's all. That's the total 3. We're expecting that to go down. And remember, while altcoins, most altcoins are also bearish right now, we will quickly flip bullish because they're close to support. That's another episode for another day. But those of you who know. We're not waiting for too long before we hit crucial support in altcoins, and then we start printing actual trending, trending positive price action. A big trending positive price action, not this little stuff, right? We get moose or meese, right? Bears and meese right here. That's what we're eating. We're eating good. All right, so that's a total 3. And finally, last but not least, again, the Bitcoin dominance read was simple. It was simple insofar as you're on 750 plus day support right here. Are you going to bounce off support, or are you going to break support? Well, support's made to bounce off of. You don't break resistance at resistance. You don't break support at support. So you're on support, you bounce there, and we bounce up to the next logical resistance. That read is simple on a high time frame. High time frame typically plays out. You move down onto the smaller time frame to analyze how, or answer how it may play out. Okay, but then your trades and your theses are always on a high time frame. It enables you to have a high likelihood of winning. You may have some difficulty, it may take a while, but you're eventually going to win. That's what a lot of people don't get. A lot of people don't fucking get that. But it's okay. It's hard to have conversations in this space because there's so much short-term, immediate gratification. Like, I saw a red candle, I saw a green candle, ergo this is the case. Like, zoom out, please. Zoom out, please. Technical analysis can be simple. It can get really complex, but at its base, it's simple and elegant. And so this is support. And on the small time frames, we said we're likely going to get a bounce, and that's exactly what we got. And this is your next likely resistance, and that's where you're going to. Your stochastic RSI momentum indicator is showing you the same thing, even more. If you guys use these indicators, you'll see this is a classic example of confirmed bullish divergence. What does that mean? So you here on the chart have a lower low, right? So this is a low, this is an even lower low. On the momentum indicator, right, you have your K and D lines. The K line, I think, is the blue, and the D line is the orange, or it's flipped. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter. You have these two lines, and they correspond to these 2 points, yeah? So this line is low, but this line's higher. That's what we call bullish divergence. And the confirmed bullish divergence is that now the K and D lines cross, so it's confirmed. So it's very likely that this go up from here and this also go up from here. This is what you see on your Bitcoin dominance chart. Remember, if Bitcoin dominance is going up, that's likely meaning that Bitcoin and the rest of the cryptocurrency market is going to go down for a bit. That's the analysis. Hope this was helpful, useful. Like, share, and subscribe. If you got value, consider tipping Litecoin, Venmo, Cash App, all at the pinned comment below, and consider joining my crypto portfolio mentorship and consultation service, where we hunt meese and bears and big stuff and eat very, very well eventually. But we may spend 300 days in a canopy smelling like beaver. That sign up is at the pinned comment below. And don't forget the BTCC new exchange partner bonus. It's a 10% cashback bonus if you deposit for new deposits of 500 USDT or above, or the equivalent of 500 USDT and above, deposited on the exchange. Make a trade, either a futures trade or a spot trade. Wait 7 days and you should get your 10% cash back. Okay, that's it. Take care. Bye. My prevalent time slot, I vocalize, too deep to localize, even when I'm right on the surface. You act surprised how I work this, but I can't lie. Many a good alibi, I'll catch you later. Visions are vividly enhanced with emphasis and amethyst to develop morale advantages which help us manifest. Magnanimous, we body vitals like evangelists. So listen when you're dealing with people who be revealing premonitions with precision. At least that's what I'm aiming at for now. I speak the language of the world, meandering throughout the crowd. Used to feel safe to say anything, but now it's a risk. It's hard for me to let go when all I can do is reminisce. Gone like the wind, here's where I begin. Should I smile or should I grin?